Good morning, folks. Welcome to another episode of Lighting the Candle, a world that works. I'm here with my really dear friend and longtime buddy Lisa Sheehan. And at the moment, it looks like it's going to be the two of us kind of chatting with each other. And today, I think what we decided we're going to do along the lines of empowerment, because our conversations are really intended to do two things: empower each other. And we believe that if we're able to do that, then perhaps you, the listener, are getting some empowerment out of it as well. So today's conversation along those lines is one that I've asked my dear friend to talk about a transition that she's in right now. I met her because she is kind of a co-producer slash editor of a really great magazine that's been going on for a couple of years. I was blessed enough to publish an article in it. A couple of the other folks on this podcast have also published, and I believe that Vanessa Lewis is a repeat offender, and she's done very, very well with her time with Epic Magazine. So, Lisa, with that said, let me ask you the question this way today, if you will. Can you say a little bit about what the Epic journey has been like? You know, who you have become as a result of the Epic journey, and where you're standing right now. What does the rest of the world and the rest of life look like for you at this moment? Is that something we can chew on today?
Oh, I think so.
All right. So I'm actually interviewing you today, which is a little different than what we do here. And the whole idea is that I really want to know the answers to the questions as much as you can conjure it, and I really want you to feel comfortable doing so. Okay. So Lisa, my question again was past, present, and future. How's Lisa doing? And can you kind of like put it in the pocket of Epic Magazine and that experience for us, please?
Sure. Uh, well, we recently retold the story as our goodbye video on our Facebook page because we started basically back in 2018 meeting with the original publishers of Epic who are in Durango, Colorado, Lisa and Lori. And it was a fabulous trip. We landed in Albuquerque, New Mexico to get to Durango. So we had a fabulous car ride from one point to the other, saw some sights in a whirlwind, 5 days kind of a trip, and then studied with them and trained with them, and then came back. And it took us a few months to get our everything together to put out our first issue, which was in September, October of 2019. And since that point, just getting the cover art was always been by local artists, so getting that was always our like starting point and the part that got us excited, and then everything else kind of fell into place as far as the content went. And then there was the closing, which is always hectic, and then uh, distribution, which is always fun too. We got to meet a lot of people that way, which I always found interesting. Both of us did find it interesting, and we were going along. And January of 2020, we had gone to the Mel Robbins show and met her backstage with magazine, and she was very impressed by it. And then we went to a Qigong festival and learned all about health and nutrition and Qigong. And then February 20th, we went to Deepak Chopra at the Palace in Waterbury. And, little did we know that would be our last live show. And then, of course, we all know it hit in March. Well, everything closed down in March anyhow. But once we hit March and things started to go drastically downhill, we felt inspired to keep people uplifted and even more gathered in community and to spread the good word that something great was going to happen after this whole thing was over. And I still believe that. We still believe that. Um, and we just put more fire and passion into the printing and the distribution, and constantly trying to adjust to businesses that were closing and some that actually were opening but are shifting, and we did too. So we were all gangbusters, gung ho with that kind of momentum for a long time. And then the cost of paper started going up as everything else did, and so the cost of printing went up, the cost of distribution went up, the cost of shipping went up. So it was just almost too hard to keep up. And then the recovery process of the businesses that we like to deal with, or that were part of our community, we're not getting back in the groove. And nobody was, because the recovery was so much slower than we all anticipated. So we just couldn't keep up the momentum or the financial aspect of it. So we talked about it. We even used Oracle cards. we we did everything we could to find out what the right solution was, and it would just it there was no question that it was time to bring it to a sad end. It was sad in many ways, but as I sit here now and talk to people about it, I've also been always looking for something to do outside of my corporate job, and it was not my first foray into entrepreneurship. So little things I did before that I did for a hot minute. I had a company called Kid and You, and it was field trips for grown-ups. A great idea, not so easy to implement. Or you can't have 50 of your closest friends coming on trips with you all the time.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've said so much, that's a rich, few minutes. And I'd like to just ask you a few specific questions if you don't mind.
Sure.
So how did you find out about Epic? And by the way, Epic is empowering people, inspiring communities, which is just a perfect backdrop for what we're doing with our podcast. And how did you hear about the magazine in the first place?
Well, of course, it was an advertisement. Seeing that advertising is my life. So it was an online spiritual magazine that Lisa and Lori and Durango had put an ad saying, looking for publishers throughout the country. So we decided, I took, months for it to go back and forth, and seeing if it was a right fit, and then, bringing Samantha on board to make it possible. And that kind of collaboration was definitely needed, because it's a big undertaking.
Sure.
But yeah.
So in addition to the printed magazine, tell me about some of the other things that you've done over the past 2 years, including the daily podcast that you've been doing.
And that was as a result of COVID as well. We had been listening to some coaches, and they said, just get out there more online, since that's the only place to get to people now. So Samantha jumped on that bandwagon, and had a natural talent for it. So, and that was a bonus for all of our contributors, whether they be paid advertisers or authors or artists, or even nonprofit organizations that we like to boost in each issue of the magazine too.
Sure.
So we get to know and meet and be community with such an eclectic group of people, between the nonprofits that we adored and the artists. It was such a varied group, and then the business owners. So it did give us a whole, broader spectrum of entrepreneurship, so to speak.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed my time with Sam. It was a lot of smiling back and forth, and a lot of empowering conversation. And I'll tell you what, just give me 1 second here. Um, the takeaway for me was, I'm just curious, how many podcasts did you record? Do you know?
Oh, no, I do not.
And let me ask you this: are they available for people to listen to now?
They're on the Facebook page, and they're also on YouTube.
Okay. All right. So you and I will have a conversation about that later on. But in the meantime, so you've gone through this journey. The first one is trying to understand the opportunity. It sounds like this is something you discovered yourself. You found out, through your own kind of introspective process, which I've known and loved in you so many different ways. You're a great listener. You're a great thinker and a great question asker, in my opinion. And that out of that came Samantha. Did you already know her, or was this somebody who just came across your life like I did?
No, we belong to the same Unity Church in Torrington. So, and we actually joined the Unity Church at the same time. So that was in 2010, I believe. No, 2011. Or I have it written down somewhere around there. So I think it's about 10 years that we've known each other from church.
Sure. And would you say that you had become good friends over that period of time and saw each other frequently, or just in passing at church and got to know each other and were friendly
Oh
that?
no, no, yeah, no, we were heavily involved, both of us in church, and I mean, I was Sunday was my day to, pre-COVID, we would meet in person, and that was I was there. There was rarely a Sunday I wasn't there,
Sure.
and she was heavily involved with the youth, and had both been on the board, so we were both heavily involved and friends outside of that.
Well, that is fantastic. She's a lovely person and just exudes a tremendous energy. And I can definitely see the yin and the yang in the two of you working together. It looks to me like an extraordinary fit as well, personality wise. Probably what you like is not, there's some overlap there, but probably not quite the same. And then the next question that I had for you, you used the term I'm not familiar with on a particular kind of card to consult with the great beyond. I'm interpreting about what's the next step. This Can you say some more about that?
I think what really happened was people were nervous and scared about the word tarot. Um, so, and then, so they call them oracle cards now, just to seek guidance from the other side. Um, and everybody and their brother has created a deck of oracle cards. So you can find any spiritual author or
Probably Game of Thrones and Harry Potter. I'm sure there's tarot cards for almost every taste.
yeah, there probably is. I haven't seen that one yet, but there probably is. But yeah, I have at least 10 decks that I consult on occasion here and
Maybe
there.
I'll invest in one and see how that helps. Since I've lost my crystal ball, it actually was stolen in 2016 when a bunch of other things went away, from my office. I'm not able to predict the future as anywhere near as well as I was when I had this. It was a beautiful crystal ball. Uh, and I would definitely attribute a lot of my success. No, this is just a story. I had it on my desk as a kind of a talking piece, conversation starter, that sort of thing, along with a dozen or 15 other just artifact objects, including an abacus, including a sundial, just lots of things to more or less just get people curious and get their energies flowing when we're having a conversation about something completely different. So back with the tarot cards, tell me a little bit more about that, or oracle cards. I have to, use the correct current vernacular and be respectful of everyone's mindful appeal. And so tell me more about that experience. Is this something, how did that go down, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm trying to remember my first deck. Um, well, I don't know. Do you know Colette Baron Reed? She's a well-known astrologer and
I
medium.
don't, but I'll bet you many of our listeners do. It's probably a familiar name to people other than me. Yeah.
And years ago, I went to the expo in Massachusetts and saw her live. So that could have been like the beginning of it. In fact, we could pull. Would you like to pull a card? Shall we pull a card?
Oh, let's do this. Let's demonstrate.
In fact, the deck I have is a Colette Baron Reed Wisdom of the Oracles.
Yep, that's great.
And what's usually fabulous about them is they have the best artwork. So they usually collaborate with a specific artist. And then they, of course, have to write the whole book of what they all mean. So it's quite the endeavor to take on, but many people do it. I know I have friends that have created their own oracle card decks. So what energy or what question would you like to ask the oracles?
Well, we're talking about E.P.I.C magazine today,
Okay.
and let's beg the question. The decision's been made.
Right.
All the tears and the laughter have been experienced, and so what comes after E.P.I.C magazine?
And let's see what they
How's
say.
that for a pretty typical Bill Correll wide road to drive down?
So it's reversed, which means it's upside down, but it's card number 9, and numerology plays into it a lot too, and it's Treasure Island. So that sounds promising, but it's not always the case.
So upside down, does that necessarily mean it might not be easy, but there is treasure in them dar hills?
It's usually the opposite lesson almost.
Okay.
So for Colette's interpretation of her own cards, the essential meaning is the law of attraction, bringing dreams into fruition, the results of positive thinking made manifest, abundance appearing as if from nowhere, financial gains, and the sharing of good fortune. But the protection message is how she refers to the reverse is poverty consciousness and a sense of not enough cast a shadow on your path. These ideas and core beliefs come with a high cost. Do you really want to proclaim yourself a victim of disappointment and failed expectations? Are you avoiding success because you will grow so tall that others will want to cut you down? Or is it possible that you're caught in a fear that you will lose that what you have acquired? So you hold on so tight that you might miss the opportunities to expand. You are challenged to change the way you see the world and move from a perception of limitations to a perception of abundance. Take a risk, for you have nothing to lose except your confinement in the prison of your own making. Open the door and find the abundance waiting for you to claim it.
Holy mackerel. How's that for coaching on one question? And
Right?
I think one size fits all on all of this. If this wasn't for you or for me, this is like for everybody,
Right.
that
That energy of any transition. So, and Lord knows we're all going through transitions probably on a daily, if not moment by moment basis.
absolutely, no question about it. And so the upside of that is that all things are possible, you know, and and I love, the sign that comes up out of that tarot card or that oracle card that basically says, guess what? You have met the enemy and he is you, or he is you. So
Right.
this will happen for you unless you're in your own way, and for some reason or another, your mindfulness is more on the scarcity side and less on the abundance side.
Right.
Very powerful coaching for anyone.
True.
It's a very, very common reminder for people that your thinking is what creates your present and your future. And your thinking may be influenced of the past. However, it's not the real past. It's the one that you recall experiencing. And your mileage may vary with regard to its accuracy.
And that's why I like these more than horoscopes.
Yeah.
They're not, if you have a bad horoscope out, the 12 for every billion people on the planet, there's 12 horoscopes.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it
it's the
just
thing with the Chinese years, being the year of the
yeah,
dog.
yeah, you could use them all, but there's still only 12 of those. But my point was that I would sometimes read a bad horoscope and then it would affect my whole day, or sometimes the good ones can too. But this at least is a lesson, so you could just like chew on it all day and bring
And
it back.
they have a Rorschach, kind of an appeal as well, that it's going to play with you in a fashion that you can hear and see and understand at the moment. And it's going to be colored probably with the thoughts that you had prior to being exposed to whatever this lesson is. So in the meantime, there's just this really cool reminder that basically says, whenever it's possible, do a mind flush and clear the cache, as we say in the computer world. Get
Mhm.
all of that stuff out and have a complete clean space. And as a result of that, do you do mindful meditating in the morning?
I do a variety of things in the morning. Besides, I exercise. I basically do the Miracle Morning process by Hal Elrod. So he wrote a book. There's a movie. There's a podcast. There's emails. But anyway, so I exercise. I journal. I meditate. Moment of silence. Um, and I always forget one. Well, he likes affirmations and that I don't always do, and visualizations, which I don't always do either. But um, I try to do a semblance, at least three of of the five, six things that he says to do.
Sure. So what's your experience with being a predictor of your own future?
My picture of my own future. That's a good question because I think, well, maybe it's not because my goal lately is to live in the present moment. So I'm trying, maybe the fact that I don't ponder the future that much is could be a good answer on my behalf right now.
Yeah. So along those lines, there was a Facebook meme, which I'm going to probably destroy it, but it was something along the lines of your you can do nothing about yesterday, and in the present you can create a beautiful future. And in fact, the only place that the future is ever created is when?
Now,
And
well,
now.
never actually.
It's a linguistic expression of a concept that only apparently human beings have. This is
Exactly.
this is a discussion that has gone on for thousands of years in terms of the temporality of now and our experience of now and then. And what I love about it is that there's a kind of an opportunity to be an inventor and a creator or an artist or whatever model seems to work the best for you. It's along the lines of being a soothsayer. Yes, a
Hmm.
soothsayer is only as good as the belief of the person who's listening. They have no more strength other than either having had a credible past where they've been right a significant number of times and been able to keep their head as far as the king's question is concerned, or queen. But to have this opportunity in any moment to create yourself, and as Bucky Fuller used to say, that the speaking of your own life, and that when it becomes that powerful, that you say chair and a physical chair falls out of your mouth. I've always loved that, that whole image and that idea. And if you're consistent, again, we're all this was caused by a question that we asked, and then the conversation that got created by kind of delving into the footnotes that come along with these wonderful cards. So, with that said, is there ever any other place to look than yourself for the quality of your experience of your own life and empowerment?
I was thinking before when we were talking because as much as I haven't precisely pondered my future, I'm also very excited about it to see where the breadcrumbs and I want to more mindfully be more aware of the breadcrumbs that are appearing in front of me and know what their message is or that I'm on the right path is kind of cool. I've been, doing like some storytelling, that kind of thing lately, and that's been exciting. And finding new people on YouTube, which I was telling you about, and a slower pace, a more mindful pace, which I can do now for at least the moment.
It's an interesting quest to be on. And typically, I draw from the teachings of a lot of people that I have respect for. So when I speak, very little of what I'm saying is an authentically first time it's been uttered by a human being. My footnote is I don't remember where I heard it, but if you get something good out of it, then good on you. If it doesn't work for you, cast it aside. It's worth what you paid for it. Okay. So, listening to the teachings of people like Deepak, Wayne Dyer, Jack Canfield, uh, Mr. Seven Habits, the whole genre of these people who put words down in a particular order that it would have a breakthrough effect, not with what they were saying, but what was being understood by the person who was reading it. And in all of these instances, the most powerful thing, if you listen to every single experience, Napoleon Hill, all the people that were interviewed, Carnegie, the whole 9 yards, what they found in people who had successful lives, and by success, they didn't judge that as economic or financial success. They judged it as people who could stand listening to their own thoughts. These were people who had the audacity to think and say out loud things that were unhearable by other people until all of a sudden they created some sort of a new world. So along those lines, we live with a lot of those kind of people right now who would sue me if I used their name, in this podcast, possibly. So I won't. So the point is that what we really want to take into consideration here is the meaning of what we see in front of us, and where does that come from, and who gives it that meaning. So for instance, right now you have this opening, Lisa, where the magazine and the podcasts and all the stuff around that and all the feeling about it and the excitement that you have, and kind of what you're seeing that's presenting itself. I'll just ask you a direct question. What's the life that you want to have? What is the life that you would create for yourself?
I have been on I guess, spiritual quest, which brings me on I've discovered a quest to rediscover myself. I keep getting hits of what. Years ago, I read the book The Shack, and that changed my whole spiritual perspective. And then that led me to Unity Church. So there's always that kind of something that is a catalyst for your change in a better way. And I, rediscovered. I've always loved nature, but it's just becoming more profound now.
Yes.
And the planet's becoming more profound. So I'm discovering my true lows, I think, is what it comes down to. And I want to build my life around that instead of having to do something. But I've also, in the full disclosure and just to be completely authentic, I discovered that after E.P.I.C ended, my my full-time job doesn't seem as bad as it was before. I think I put such a like a angry spotlight on it that it could have no value. And so but now I really cherish my free time even more now. Is
Yes.
what happened.
So that's really remarkable what you just said. There is there's a huge difference if you take a movie being played by a projector and you put it on a black wall, you're going to see one thing. You put it on a white wall, you're going to see something else. You put it on the side of a house, you're going to see something else. The quality of your experience has to come down at some point, as all of these great minds indicated one way or the other. And another great guy that I used to listen to who said the truth will set you free and first it will piss you off, you know? So it's a two-stage process. You kind of have to go through both of those to one degree or another, but then there's the joke afterwards, that I am the author of every single problem that I have in life. And what to do about that? The answer that the guys who sit on mountaintops, gazing at their navels come up with, there's nothing to do about that. Not a darn thing. It's something to kind of inquire about. It's something to see. And as what I hear you saying is, where is my joy? Where is my bliss? What are the things when I'm doing them that I'm most experiencing being alive and being Lisa?
Exactly.
So that's quite a bit different than what most people would say, if they were examining breadcrumbs. Your breadcrumbs, in my opinion, your breadcrumbs are metaphysical. They're not signs, on the wall. They're not necessarily what's getting presented to you. it's you challenging yourself to recognize, in your experience, in the people that you talk to or the things that you read, those things that authentically read, or actually what I would call resonate. Like if you put two guitars close to each other, and they're tuned to exactly the same.
Right.
You pluck one string, the same string on the other one starts to vibrate and it'll actually make noise. That's the listening that's really powerful for people. That if you're upset, that what you're probably tuned into, and this broadcast is brought to you by WIIFM, What's in It for Me. If you're having a bad day, change the station. If you're having a bad day, take the responsibility to take some action and stop your thinking for a moment and allow yourself to just create a clearing, a silence, a place where hopefully if you're one of those people that can transform a moment from abject fear or disdain into laughter. We know those kinds of people, right? Who are upset one moment and then are giggling in the next moment, and we want to smack them and we want to go like, "What are you doing?" And he said, or she said, "I am such a butt. I can't even believe that we had this conversation and I was taking part in it. I
Mhm.
apologize to you from the bottom of my heart." Now, I've been around people that do that every once in a while, and it sets me back. And I like to remember to do that more myself, because the neat part of it is that philosophy, whatever works in the world, Lisa, that's your fault. I give you, I give you the credit. Whatever isn't working in the world, well, that's up to me. I got to get busy with either determining that it's not important and moving on to something that is. These are the processes. These are, like experiencing your joy and your bliss is one thing. And the other thing that I know about you is the number of different people and human beings that you listen to in podcasts and online teaching and all that sort of thing during the course of the week. Folks at home don't know this, but I do. You're constantly consuming really important thought matter, in my opinion.
That's my one of my favorite things on the planet. I can't really. I'm not satiated by any extent of any of them, and I love discovering new ones
Sure.
and being more mindful. I was telling you about a YouTube. She's a star actually, the Cottage Fairy, and it's just a simple. They're no more than 10 minutes long, and it's just simple following her doing daily different things that she does, whether making tea with flowers or walking through the hills of Washington State with her unleashed dog, as I like to say. But I find myself slowing down after watching her and making everything more mindful, including washing a dish or putting a dish away or things like that. Because I think you can find gratitude in every single moment if you just look for a moment. Look at the chair. Like I look at my chair, it's from my grandmother. So if you just take the moment to look and say, "Oh yeah, hi grandma," it reminds me of you. Grateful for that. It needs a it needs to be reupholstered, but it's a great chair.
So I have a life that is full of those kinds of objects that are supercharged with energy and memories and all sorts of things. I hung out with another person. This gal said, "You need to regard your body as a very, very important physical object in your life." And that one of the practices that she instilled in me was, when I go to bed at night, when I remember and I'm being mindful, I thank my body for what it did for me today, that it carried me through the hard work. It carried me through whatever stressful moments that I had and gave me the energy and the strength, to put something else in place if I did. And then I wish it and give it permission to totally shut down and take whatever it needs in terms of recovering itself, getting back to full energy. And I usually say, "Good night. We have a big day planned tomorrow."
Well, that's I mean, the body, I mean, it's the house of your soul. When you think about, none of you would be here without the physical body that's traveling with it, or or how people put it, your skin suit or your meat suit, or horrible things like that. But I've recently tried to be more plant based and stuff like that to give my body what it really needs, and not, stay away from sugar and all those things that your body doesn't need. Never mind, will it um, be able to utilize
Sure.
in any way, shape, or form. So, I mean, I think that's a journey that should take a lifetime, constantly adjusting to. And I think I've told you before, I have a very low stool that I use to sit down in front of the TV now, so that I can get more used to squatting and using those muscles and joints, because you stop doing it, you lose it, you know, use it or lose it kind of thing that they say. And it's true. So I'm constantly looking for ways to improve me physically and mentally. So outside of, reading and listening, I'm doing.
Right. And so the really important part in what you're saying that I'm taking away isn't that you're not doing this because it's a good thing to do. You're doing this because this is your choice. You want to be mindful of who you are. You want to be on purpose in terms of how you experience life. And you recognize that the responsibility for being prepared for, yeah, for those moments that take you by surprise and take your breath away, and in many cases leave you totally disempowered, you can build muscle and you can prepare for that. So that, again, upset is going to happen in everyone's life. And all of us experience that initial breakdown. I got to say, from everyone that I've talked to and the way they've described it, it sounds really familiar. So I'm going out on a ledge here and saying, we start at the same place. This really sucks, or maybe it's not words you can even put into it. It's that bad. But the question is how long are you going to allow, how many of your precious seconds that you only have a finite number of until they throw dirt in your face, you know? How many of those are you going to let go away before you get back to where you were and you find your center and you are once again at the controls, the levers and the dials and the steering wheel and all that of your life, as opposed to being buffeted and being upset? I know some people that'll spend days and weeks and sometimes even years being totally upset by a major thing that happens in their life. I say, God bless them. And I say, what a waste.
Right. Right.
So I said all of that so I can come back around and say to you, you are one of those people that's building muscle, as much as you possibly can when you're awake or you're asleep, those two kinds of times. So now the present that you're in, it's coming across to me as a very, very good one. It's coming across as is that at this point in this moment, the full picture, the landscape isn't necessarily all visible and or drawn, or however, you do sound to me like somebody who's up to it.
Well, when you were saying that, all I pictured was a watercolor in process of being painted. So it's not all colored in yet, but it's a beautiful landscape.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. That's a brilliant model or analogy, because if you paint with oils, it's kind of messy to try to change something you've put on the canvas. But watercolors are a little bit different beast. You can put something there that is full of color and jazz and beauty and, great sunsets and all this mountains. And as the man used to say, there's a happy little cloud over here. It's your world. So imagine for a moment if you closed your eyes and just thought about yourself, in terms of, I am the creator of how I'm going to live my life. I may not be in charge of all the artifacts that come my way or the conversations that come my way, but I can make a difference now for how future things are going to be experienced, and how long, if at all, I'm knocked out of my groove in terms of where I'm not myself, where I'm not being the authentic me that I intend to be.
Right. We can't control the external, but sometimes I think if you look at the different possibilities of looking at something like something as simple as rain, for a farmer in the experiencing drought, a rain could be a miraculous, joyful, blessed event. But for somebody planning their wedding, rain could be a disappointing factor, but you could still, it depends on how you look at it. Your change your perspective is can easily happen if you just take the time. It's not always easy to do. I shouldn't say that. It really isn't always easy to do, but it's out there. You just flip the coin. I remember just recently seeing a cartoon where somebody's looking at the number 6 or the number 9, depending on how you look at it. So, depending on which side what angle you're looking at it from, it's a 6 or it's a 9, but you're both right. you know, it's all perspective.
Yeah, the other thing that along those lines was the perspective of 4 or 5 people in a dark room, and they're with this with an animal, and they have to describe the animal. And at the front end is somebody who's feeling this long, kind of narrow, round thing that seems like a snake, and at the back end, there's somebody who's feeling this big, round, massive, huge, muscular, smooth thingy. Okay. And then there's somebody else going, no, 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 there's no snake. I don't know what you've got, but I got a tree trunk over here. And they've got their arms wrapped around, whatever it is. And then they turn the light on, and they're all right. They're all hugging an elephant from different
Mhm.
perspectives. So the main idea here is, in any moment, you and I don't know what's going to happen next. There's kind of a need at some point, if you want to keep your sanity and if you want to have some fun in life, there's a need to kind of surrender to that. The you know Being in control of something or things or all the rest of that, it's an illusion. And quite frankly, it's one that's like painting your life story in advance with oils as opposed to watercolors. If you dance with what's happening, if you have the muscle to be able to immediately move back to being in charge of the painting and the brush strokes, you got a real opportunity of having a lot more enjoyment in your life. And it's quite possible that the people around you are going to see that opportunity to model what you do in their own life, and to create empowerment, because it comes from you and me.
Right.
There's no prescription. You can't, I mean, unless you want to go on a codeine drip or something like that, or morphine. That might be one of the ones where you can go someplace and get a prescription for it. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend that if you're an athlete or people who likes to move around much, right?
Plus, it's lonely.
It's very lonely, and that's the point. That's the point. Life is for the living, life is experienced among the living, and the cookies exist by being with people that you know, like, and trust and love. And kind of with that said, Lisa, any other thoughts about the future? What happens after Epic? Do you mind sharing what happens to this Epic? What is it? Just kind of like go into the ether land, and it's as if it never existed, kind of thing, or what would you?
Well, a lot of, well, no, not all of it, because the name is trademarked with the original Epic. So they'll take over emails and stuff like that just to see if there's any interest in um, keeping things going. They're expanding their online presence too, so there might be opportunities in that realm for current our people in Connecticut to expand their horizons as well.
Yes.
So there'll be some, but other it will basically fade away.
Yeah. So you had mentioned another endeavor that you're embarking on, the storytelling aspect. Can you say some more about that? Because that's very intriguing to me.
I Her name is Leah Lamb, actually, and she's one of those accomplished people. She worked with yeah, I'll think of his name, um, the vice president with um, climate change,
Al
Al
Gore.
Gore.
Yeah.
She worked with him, and she's done a variety of things. She was an actress. So she's got all this, and storytelling is one of her favorite things. But the last class was to retell a myth that exists. So I got such just researching it because I did the story of Chiron, who's the king of centaurs, and just doing the research. And then I found a quote that said, doctors were create. God made doctors to help heal the body. God created horses to help heal the soul. So imagine if you were both.
That's lovely.
Thus, then, so just, I mean, I my storytelling talents have yet to I tend to rock and do all sorts of fun things when I tell stories. So I've got a lot of improving to do. But I found myself when I was practicing it, smiling all the time. So that in itself, and I told her the same thing. I mean, I thought it was a great endorsement too. And to notice that I was smiling all the time is another thing, that people don't always take the time to realize what's actually bringing them joy in a moment or something, and to just keep that going somehow, or remember it when times are tough. Bring back that moment.
That's huge. A lot of people will do this sort of thing in front of a mirror, which is a remarkable feedback tool.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot like being on Zoom. Okay.
Right, exactly.
When I first started on Zoom, and I probably had been online with a product that I sell maybe a half a dozen times with people in 2 or 3 years. And now it came down to looking at my mug, saying what I said, what I looked like, whether I liked it or I didn't. This is what other people are seeing. But of course, I know they're not seeing what I'm seeing because I'm seeing based on, my receptors and what I think about myself. And they're seeing me based on what they think of me. And some people are liking it and other people are going. So the really cool part of all of this is that I'm at a point now where I'm completely comfortable with whatever the perception is, both mine and other people, makes little or no difference to me whatsoever, as long as there's communication going on, as long as there's an exchange of authentic views. And that was really kind of a forced, upgrade for me to make during that period of time. I know a lot of people who said, I hate Zoom and I'm just not going to be on those meetings.
Well, I think authentic is the key too, because people can tell when you're not
Right.
being you. And because even if you watch the talent shows and things like that, they give the highest praise to those that have emotion behind their performance.
Yes.
You can do all the technical wonders you want, but if there's no passion behind it, people can tell.
Yeah, that's the coaching that I was given when I was going to be presenting to groups of people. You want to do mirror work at the beginning so that you can be critical and upgrade, what you look like in your own mind. And then you'll know that where you're getting across to other people and to the audience in your mirror work is when your attention is no longer on your own image. It's whatever's being created, the image of that thought process in your head, and getting the ideas across to other people. So that's all part of, the I say phenomenon. And what's your life like? Well, we have a tremendous amount of power in one sentence to create a world that's absolutely blissful and full of vibrancy, or turn it to a pile of, what, um, food scraps. That's what we're turning it to. So the whole idea here today is to take kind of a personal journey with you, for us to come along, and thank you for allowing us to do that. You're a remarkable human being in my opinion, and I think if people hear me say that about you and they don't understand the level of thinking and the level of actual hands-on, you are not a tennis fan, you are a person out on the court, dripping, sweating, doing all those things, and the intention is to get a little bit better every single day.
And to have that acknowledged is still, I think, it's a human desire, and it always feels good to be recognized.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that your ability to see that and express it
Well,
for me. Well,
That's my opinion, and it's very very humbling to become friends with you over this period of, good Lord, it's got to be 2 full years ish. It seems like
Longer, I think.
longer than that, but it's got to be like maybe 2.5 years, because I believe the first time that we met at Jenny's authentic networking group, what we you were sharing with me something you were getting started with. That was my recollection. And
Right,
I started telling you some stories having to do with my understanding and my actual living of the law of attraction,
right,
and the audacity that, having had a few things come true that I basically either dreamt about or had thoughts about, and then they manifested, that made me feel like I was onto something. And you thought it was noteworthy to share with other people. And that was the basis of our friendship. You were very powerful in your listening of my stories. And I also think that, I was powerful in my listening of who you were as an immediate friend.
definitely. Yeah, it was mutual, that's for sure. And yeah, you're good at the law of attractions.
Well,
No.
most, like most things, I believe you get to experience them in the present the more you practice. And where do you practice? It's always now.
Right. You can't experience it any other time. But
It's true. Good. Any other thoughts with regard to Epic Magazine, Lisa Sheehan on the journey, before, during, and after? Any kind of like closing thoughts you want to give to our listeners?
I think we've often brought this up too, is just to constantly be in search of yourself. And it doesn't matter what avenues you take to get there, whether it's listening to podcasts or reading books or watching other people or taking a walk in nature or taking part in some sort of creative project or all of the above. I think you can start finding yourself more and more and more, and like let things fade away that aren't you. Don't hang out with people that are negative towards you, um, or a negative influence. I mean, you don't want to hang out with everybody that just thinks exactly like the way you do, but there's comfort in being able to be vulnerable with people enough to find out more about yourself.
Yes, which often comes from asking questions of other people and then kind of monitoring and paying attention, self monitoring and self, recognizing that what they've said meant nothing until you heard it.
Right.
That's a remarkable way to live a life, isn't it?
Yep, definitely.
And I know you can answer that from your own personal experience. You are one of the people, and I think Ken is somebody else who, in any moment, we're always certain that this is a man who's decided how his life is going to go. He's decided what will be included in it and what will not be included in it. And then the world happens.
Right. But he's also always asking questions, like you said. It's not a black and white thing. It changes all the time.
Yes. Yeah. Three very key ingredients here to empowerment. And if you have nothing more to say on our subject of Lisa, then I will close out with this thought. The three most important ingredients of empowerment are: number one, telling the truth; number two, being mindful and being in the present; and number three, being annoyingly curious.
I like it.
So, with that said, I want to thank you, Lisa, my dear friend, and I want to thank our wonderful listeners, for once again being part of our little conversation here. There are flies on the wall today for our little chat.
It's been a great one.
Same here. We will see you all next time on Lighting the Candle, a world that works. And remember, if the world's working, congratulations, you did that.
Have a good week.
Bye bye for now.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, a world that works, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can hear us at exvadio.com/podcasts Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts.